Good morning. Today I will be taking class on cervix. Cervix, coming to the normal structure, the cervix consists of internal os communicating with the endometrial cavity above and an external os communicating into the vagina below. Ectocervix is the part of the cervix which is exposed to the vagina and it will be lined by stratified squamous epithelium, whereas endocervix is continuous with that of the endocervical canal and it is lined by a tall columnar mucus secreting epithelium. So the junction between the ectocervix and endocervix is called as junctional mucosa, and it is also known as transitional zone or squamo-columnar junction. It is very important, significant landmark both clinically and pathologically. Next, the cervical mucosa will undergo changes with the influence of the hormone and in cases of pregnancy. Lesions of the cervix are usually common, of which greatest significance involve cervicitis, benign tumor, dysplasia, carcinoma in situ and invasive carcinomas. So coming to the cervicitis, some degree of cervical inflammation can always be seen in case of multiparous women and in some nulliparous women. The normal intact ectocervical stratified epithelium is usually resistant to the infections, whereas the endocervical columnar epithelium will be first affected in case of the inflammation. Coming to the cervicitis, cervicitis can be specific or non-specific. It can be acute or chronic. Specific cervicitis is caused by tuberculosis, syphilis, granuloma inguinale, lymphogranuloma venereum, chlamydia and chancroid. Non-specific cervicitis is frequent and it is divided into acute and the chronic form, and the chronic form is more frequently involved. Coming to acute cervicitis is associated with puerperium or gonococcal infections. Other causes can be primary chancre and infection with herpes simplex. Grossly, if you see the cervicitis area, it will be of everted with endocervical mucosa which is red and edematous. Histologically, there will be infiltration of the subepithelial and periglandular tissues with neutrophils. There will be edema and congestion. The mucosa will be ulcerated and hemorrhagic. Coming to chronic cervicitis, chronic non-specific cervicitis is enquired more frequently and it is the most common cause of leukorrhea. The most common organism responsible will be of normal mixed vaginal flora that includes streptococcal, enterococcal and staphylococcal. Other infective organism includes gonococcal, Trichomonas vaginalis, Candida albicans and herpes simplex. Factors predisposing to the chronic cervicitis are sexual intercourse, trauma of the childbirth, instrumentation and excess or deficiency of estrogen. Grossly, chronic cervicitis will appear as a eversion of the ectocervix with hyperemia, edema and granular surface, and you will also see the Nabothian cyst that is called as retentional cyst, which is grossly how you will look is a pearly grey vesicles which when you are seeing in the cervix, then it shows that there is a future of chronic cervicitis. Coming to histologically, chronic cervicitis is again an inflammation. So there will be extensive subepithelial inflammatory infiltrate. It is of chronic type, so predominantly lymphocyte plasma cells and only few neutrophils can be seen. Sometimes there will be formation of a lymphoid follicle itself, and those cases are termed as a follicular cervicitis. So coming to the tumors, again tumors we are dividing into benign and malignant tumors, and the grey zone of lesions are there, that is called dysplasias. Dysplasias are more common with the cervical tissues. Okay, so dysplasia we will see later, and the most common malignant tumor will be the squamous cell carcinomas of the cervix. Coming to the benign tumor, the most common benign tumor is the cervical polyp. Uncommon benign tumors will be of leiomyoma, papilloma and condyloma accumulata. The most common malignant tumor is squamous cell carcinoma of the cervix. Coming to the cervical polyp, it is a common benign tumor. It is the localized benign proliferation of the endocervical mucosa that will protrude through the external os. They are usually found in 2 to 5% of the adult women, and they usually produces the irregular vaginal spotting. So grossly, how a cervical polyp will look is it is a cervical polyp is a small, bright red, fragile growth which is frequently pedunculated, but it can also be sessile. So when you are examining in the per speculum examination, when you are doing, if any pedunculated small fragile reddish mass if you are seeing, then it should be of a cervical polyp. This is the gross appearance of the cervical polyp. Coming to the microscopically, cervical polyp will be lined by the endocervical epithelium, that is tall columnar epithelium. Sometimes there can be squamous metaplasia. Squamous metaplasia means the columnar epithelium is replaced by the squamous cell, and below the epithelium there will be the fibrous tissues, congested blood vessels, and many dilated endocervical gland. So this is a microscopic feature of the endocervical polyp. Coming to the microglandular hyperplasia is also a benign condition in which there will be increased proliferation of the endocervical gland without any stroma in between. So this condition can always be mistaken for adenocarcinomas. But microglandular hyperplasia is predominantly because of the progesterone stimulation, such as during pregnancy, postpartum period, and in women taking oral contraceptive. So now we are going to see the term dysplasia. Dysplasia means dysplasia. What is meant by dysplasia is a atypical cytological changes in the layers of the squamous epithelium, and these changes are progressive. Depending upon which thickness of the squamous epithelium is involved by the atypical cells, dysplasia is graded into mild, moderate, and severe. Carcinoma in situ means full thickness involvement of atypical cells. So coming to the atypical, when the atypical cells are present in the squamous epithelium, it is called as dysplasias. When the atypical cells are present in the cervical epithelium, it is called as dysplasias. Depending upon which layer of the epithelium is present, it is graded into mild, moderate, and severe. So coming to the mild dysplasia is also called as CIN1. CIN1 means cervical intraepithelial neoplasia. When the dysplastic cells involving only the 1/3 thickness of the epithelium, it is called mild dysplasia or CIN1. When 2/3 of the epithelium is involved by the atypical cell, it is called as CIN2 or moderate dysplasia. CIN3 means full layer of the epithelium is involved by the dysplastic cell. It is called as CIN3 or carcinoma in situ or severe dysplasia. Coming to the squamous intraepithelial lesion. L cell corresponds to squamous intraepithelial lesion, that is L cell means low grade squamous intraepithelial lesion, corresponds to CIN1 and it is a flat condyloma usually related to the HPV 6 and 11. Again they are doing a different grading, that is called as squamous intraepithelial lesion. So L cell will correspond to that of the cervical CIN1. So CIN1 is also called as L cell, low grade squamous intraepithelial lesion. Then H cell will corresponds to CIN2 and CIN3. H cell is high grade squamous intraepithelial lesion that will corresponds to CIN2 and CIN3, and it is usually associated with abnormal pleomorphic cells, and it is always associated with HPV 16 and 18. Coming to this shows that if you are taking a cervix, first the dysplasia is located in the lower layer, then it is progressing to the middle layer, then it is involving the entire epithelium, and then it progresses into invasive carcinomas. So this shows that malignancy is a stepwise epithelial change and it is a progressive change. So coming to CIN or SIL can develop at any age, but it is very rare before the puberty. Always remember, between young women between 25 to 30 years, they will be mostly affected with low grade reversible changes will be seen mostly in this age group between 25 and 30, whereas progressive high grade of epithelial changes will occur in the elderly females. So but however, the periodic pap smear testing should be done to all the women once they become sexually active. Coming to the etiopathogenesis, epidemiological studies based on the epidemiology of the large populations of women with cervical cancer, several risk factors have been identified, of which the 4 most are important. First one is the woman having early age of sexual activity, woman having multiple sexual partners, women with persistent HPV infection with high risk type of oncogenic viruses, and also the potential role of high risk male sexual partners such as males having previous multiple sexual partners, previous history of penile condyloma, or male who had previous spouse with cervical cancer. Coming to the virological studies, again HPV human papilloma virus is strongly associated with that of the cervical cancer. High risk HPV type like 16 and 18 are more commonly associated with cervical cancer, whereas low risk HPV type 6 and 11 are frequently found in condylomas. So mixed high and low risk type are commonly seen in case of dysplasias. Apart from the HPV virus, HIV, HTLV1 and EBV virus are also associated with cervical cancers. So coming to this flowchart, Coming to the women with the major risk factors like early age of coitus, multiple sexual partners or high risk male sexual partners will get HPV infection. If it is of low risk type, then she will go for condyloma accumulata and there will be regression. If the patient gets infected with high risk HPV, then HPV 16 and 18 will integrate with the host gene and it will have the SIN1, that is low grade dysplasia will be there. Then persistence of infection is there. Then she may be progress into SIN2 or 3, that is high grade squamous intraepithelial lesion, and then finally it will progress into invasive cervical cancer. Coming to the molecular studies, if you look at the low risk HPV type HPV 6 and 8, it is not associated with integration of the host cell gene, whereas in case of high risk HPV like 16 and 18, it will have a two protein called as E7 and E6. These two proteins will go and what it will do is it will inactivate the tumor suppressor gene TP53 and RBG1 gene. So when the tumor suppressor gene is inactivated, there will be uncontrolled cellular proliferation. So this E7 and E6 molecular proteins, what it will go is it will stop the activity of the, that is it will inhibit the activity of the tumor suppressor gene TP53 and RB1 gene, so that there will be uncontrolled cellular proliferation that will lead into the invasive carcinomas. So coming to the grossly dysplasia, there won't be any gross changes won't be seen, except that it affects mainly of the transitional zone. Coming to the microscopically, so I have told you, so mild dysplasia SIN1 or low grade squamous intraepithelial neoplasia, moderate SIN2 corresponds to HSIL, and again severe dysplasia SIN3, it will also corresponds to HSIL. So in this flowchart, if you see, this picture shows you this is a normal squamous epithelium. So mild dysplasia means it involves only the lower 1/3 of the epithelium. These dark blue cells are the dysplastic cells affecting only the lower part of the epithelium. So it is called as mild dysplasia or SIN1, cervical intraepithelial neoplasia 1, or low grade squamous intraepithelial lesion. Coming to this moderate dysplasia, if you see middle up to 2/3 of the epithelium is involved by the atypical cells, so it is called as moderate dysplasia or SIN2 or HSIL. Now if you see here, the atypical cells are seen throughout the epithelium, so it is called as severe dysplasia or SIN3 or HSIL, or it also can be called as carcinoma in situ. So depending upon which layer of the epithelium is affected, it is classified into mild, moderate, severe. Again, one more grading is CIN1, CIN2, CIN3. CIN1 corresponds to low grade squamous intraepithelial lesion. CIN2 and CIN3 corresponds to high grade squamous intraepithelial lesion. When all the layers of the epithelium is affected, it is called as carcinomas in situ. Okay, so what will happen is, what is the basic for the pap smear testing is the atypical cells will migrate into the surface layer and it will shed into the vaginal secretions in the pap smear. So this is the basic for the pap smear testing. So in pap smear, what all you should see is look for the any dysplastic cells are there. Dysplastic, what is the characteristic of a dysplastic cells? Dysplastic cells will have crowding of the cell will be there, pleomorphism will be there, high nucleocytoplasmic ratios, coarse and irregular nuclear chromatin, mitosis and scattered dyskeratotic cells. So the diagnosis of dysplasia and carcinoma in situ is best made by the exfoliative cytological studies. And the degree of atypicality in the exfoliated surface cells can be graded on the basis of three principal features, that is nuclear features and then cytoplasmic increase, nuclear and cytoplasmic ratios. Low grade dysplasia will be predominantly seen in superficial and intermediate squamous cells, whereas high grade dysplasias will be seen in the dark basal cells. So what is the cervical screening and Bethesda system? With introduction of the pap screening programs in the western countries, the incidence of invasive cancers have declined greatly. In the pap screening program, what you will do is patients having abnormal pap smears will be followed up. Cervical screening recommendations include annual cervical smear in all sexually active women having any high risk factors which are listed above, and if 3 consecutive pap smears are negative in high risk patients, then the screening can be reduced, or if it is very satisfactory in low risk women, then the screening time can be reduced. So the broad principle, how will you report a Bethesda system is, first you will have to report whether there is a adequate cells are there, and then which category it forms, what is general diagnosis, whether it is positive for malignancy or negative for malignancy, and then microscopic features which include what you are seeing, what are the predominant cells, any reactive changes are there or any abnormalities are there. So how you will grade all these cellular abnormalities in the pap smear is atypical squamous cell of undetermined significance, L cell, H cell and squamous cell carcinomas. So L cell means again it is of SIN1 and H cell means SIN2 and SIN3. So this is how a pap smear will look. Suppose if you are seeing here, what you are seeing, pink color cells are the superficial squamous cells and the blue cells are called as intermediate squamous cells. So if you see all these pink cells and blue cells, you can see the polygonal shape. Whereas the arrow marking cells, if you see, it is not maintaining the polygonal shape, rather than it has become a oval or round shape. And if you see here, the cytoplasm is reduced and the nuclear margin is increased. So this is of dysplastic cell, this is a dysplastic cells, whereas the polygonal pink and polygonal blue shape, no, those are all normal cells. Look at those cells nucleus, it is very small, whereas the oval or round cells, if you see that those nucleus have become enlarged, so it is of dysplastic cells. So here it is of L cell type, and here when coming to the, here you are seeing many normal superficial squamous cells. If you see, abundant cytoplasm is there, polygonal shape is there and the small nucleus is there. This arrow pointing cell, if you see, the cells have still become round and small with increased nucleus. It's hardly you are able to see only some cytoplasm is there and the nucleus size is increased. So this is belongs to high grade squamous intraepithelial lesion. Coming to invasive cervical cancer, invasive cervical cancer is about 80% of the cases belongs to squamous cell carcinomas. The incidence of invasive carcinomas of the cervix has decreased in the developed countries because of the proper pap smear technique and detection and diagnosis, but the incidence still remains high in the developing countries. The risk factors and etiological factors is same that of the SIN1, what we saw in the SIN1, and the peak incidence of invasive cervical cancer is 4th or 6th decade of the life. Coming to morphological features, grossly invasive cervical cancers will present as fungating, ulcerating and infiltrating type, of which fungating or infiltrating cauliflower type is the most common type and it will affect the adjacent vaginal wall. If you see here, this is the fungating or infiltrate or fungating or cauliflower like growth, and if it becomes when in advanced tissue, when in advanced cases it will destruct the vaginal wall. Characteristically, cervical cancers arises from the squama-columnar junction. The advanced stages of the disease is characterized by widespread destruction and infiltration into adjacent structures, which includes urinary bladder, rectum, vaginal and regional lymph nodes. Histologically, what you will see is the epidermoid squamous cell carcinomas. The vast majority of the invasive cervical cancers, most common pattern will be moderately differentiated, non-keratinizing, that is you won't see any keratin pearls, non-keratinizing large cell type, and it will have better prognosis. Next will be the well differentiated keratinizing epidermoid carcinomas. See, if you see here, you are all seeing nest of tumor cells, nest of all pleomorphic tumor cells, and in between the nest of tumor cells you are seeing inflammatory cells, and there are some amount of mitotic figures. If you see all these tumor cells, they are seeing irregular nuclear margin, clumped chromatin, prominent nucleoli and small amount of the cytoplasm, and these tumor cells are arranged in the nest. In between the nest you are seeing the inflammatory infiltrate. So the most common pattern is moderately differentiated, non-keratinizing, you won't see any keratin, so that is called as non-keratinizing. Next will be the well differentiated keratinizing pattern, and the small cell undifferentiated carcinomas is of less common and it has very poor prognosis. Apart from squamous cell carcinoma, what are the other carcinomas? Adenocarcinomas. This comprises about 20 to 25% of the cases. They may be well differentiated mucus secreting adenocarcinomas or clear cell type. Other type of carcinomas includes adenosquamous carcinomas, verrucous carcinomas and undifferentiated carcinomas. So this is the classification of the carcinoma of the cervix. Okay. So this you have to memorize. So this finishes the class. Thank you.